Start with a little l'chaim, a little coffee. You could say l'chaim on coffee, right? Doesn't go against the rules. It does go against the rules, but it's okay. All right. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, good evening, dear friends. And part 2 of chapter 32. Now, part 2 of chapter 32, or actually in your books, it's actually part 3, is where the rubber hits the road. We got to now really bring it in over here. Chapter 32 is a very special chapter of Tanya. In Hebrew, 32 is spelled Lamed Bet, which spells the word Lev, heart. And that is because the topic of this chapter of Tanya is at the heart of Judaism. It's all about the heart of a Jew, and it's at the heart of Chassidus, at the heart of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe used to say about himself, and this is a big Chabad motto going forward. All the Chabad Rebbe said this, that the Alter Rebbe had personal self-sacrifice, that his followers should love their fellow Jews, to have real, true Ahavat Yisrael. This was one of the most important things to the Alter Rebbe, that to create this tremendous, deep love, and to help his Chassidim and all those who would simply hear what he has to say, to help expose the love that is within. This is really one of the top core values of the Alter Rebbe, loving a fellow Jew. It's just so important. The Alter Rebbe even wanted that Jews should have absolute self-sacrifice for their love towards a fellow Jew. Even if you're struggling to put food on the table, give charity to help another Jew. The whole idea of just really being there for a fellow Jew is something that for the Alter Rebbe was at the core of everything. And he put it at the core of Tanya, chapter 32. This is the argument of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is a radicalist when it comes to loving a fellow Jew. Usually we tend to think of love as something that needs to be developed. Or in other words, the other person must earn my love. Right? Love isn't free. Love is a commodity I've got. So if I'm going to give somebody my love, that person has to earn it. That person has to prove that they're deserving of my love. And there could always be a point where something happens and I can't afford anymore to give you my love. There's not enough return on an investment, or it's just a bad investment. That's usually the way we think of love. Love is something which it has to make sense. It's not, or in other words, it's conditional. It's not unconditional. And if you think about it, even with some of the most amazing relationships we have in life, our friends, it's conditional. I wasn't born loving you. We got to know each other. The first time I met you, it was like, all right, lukewarm. I got to hang out with you. I'm like, you know what? Maybe potentially we could be friends. We hung out more, and we gained enough trust. Oh, now we're friends. That's conditional love. Unconditional love is usually something which is reserved for really close family. Love which is unconditional, which means nothing had to happen in order to generate this love. It's just simply there. And in a certain way, you can't even ever get rid of that love. Love from children to parents, parents to children, even love between siblings. That's unconditional. Why do you love each other? I just simply do. Now, when the Torah says you have to love your fellow Jew as you love yourself, it sounds like such a tall order, because how am I supposed to love somebody who I don't like? How am I supposed to love somebody who I've never even met before? How do I love somebody who we're totally polar opposites in the way we think and how we vote and politically and the way, who knows, we're just so different. How are we supposed to love each other? The Alter Rebbe here tells us love of a fellow Jew is not conditional love. It is unconditional love because it is innate love. It is love that you were born with. And the Alter Rebbe explains to us that at the core of the Jewish soul, we are all one. We all have the same identity. We're all really like siblings. And the same way siblings love each other, not because one sibling did something for the other one, but there's just innate love. Siblings love each other. At the core of our DNA, we know that we come from the same place. We know that we're really from the same core. We're cut from the same fabric. And there's just love that comes from there. The same way we love ourselves, we love whatever is of ourselves, which is a sibling. The Alter Rebbe says that's the love between fellow Jews. In other words, you don't need to make love for another Jew. It's there already. That's the good news. You're born with it. You just need to uncover it. How do you uncover it? The way to uncover it is simply by exposing your soul. The more you are in touch with your soul, the deeper of a relationship you have with your own soul, the more you will be able to get in touch with the good juices. Let's get those good juices flowing. So the more you're in touch with your soul, the more you got those good juices flowing. One of those good juices are love towards a fellow Jew. You simply can't help it. The more you're in touch with your soul, the more natural it's going to be to want to love another Jew. And in that way, the Alter Rebbe says loving a fellow Jew is pretty easy. It's easy. The Alter Rebbe used the word easy. It's a pretty easy path. Simply lift up your soul. Prioritize your soul. Have your soul be your main identity over your body's identity. And love of a fellow Jew is somewhat natural. But okay, what the Alter Rebbe is proposing over here is a, how do you say it in English? Carte blanche? Is that how you say it? Is that how you pronounce it? Carte blanche or blank? It's a blanche?
Carte blanche.
Carte blanche. I should have known that, right? To the French. The Alter Rebbe is saying, carte blanche love. Every Jew, big to small, doesn't matter what happened, you're a Jew, there's love. Over. Which sounds really unbelievable in theory. Part 2 of the chapter is where the Alter is going to tease out this theory in practice. Okay? Because it sounds so idealistic to say, love every single Jew. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter why. It's there. Unconditional love. Innate love. You can't even explain the love. Nothing even prompted the love. It's a big idea. Unconditional love is a very big idea. Unconditional love means reason doesn't even have a seat at the table. Okay, I'm going to digress for a moment. You ready for this? A little bit of a parenthesis. Imagine if somebody would ask you, why do you love your child? Right? You have this child. Why do you love him? Why do you love her? Just give me some reasons. I want to help me understand why you love him. Would you even engage in that, or
I
what
would
was that?
that this child comes from my own part of it from my own body. That I'm responsible for this child because I brought this child into the world, and that
So what if I would press you? What if I would press you? No, give me some good reasons. Give me some reasons why you love this child. Don't just say I love them because they come from me. That's you're not giving me what to work with. Would you even answer that question?
It would be it would be hard to answer that question. I mean, I would say that. I wouldn't say that, because he writes well or because he reads well.
Oh, you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. No,
you wouldn't say that, right? Interesting.
I would not say that. No.
Right, it's interesting. So we're not saying there's nothing lovable about my child. But if you're going to ask me why I love my child, I would even be offended by that. You want me to list off their qualities, their virtues? It's not that I don't want to share their virtues. It's that the love has nothing to do with what they did or didn't accomplish in life. It's like loving a baby when they're born. What is a baby doing in life to be proud of? Making a successful bowel movement? What are you proud of? A kid makes a diaper. Yeah! The dad and the mom, they're so happy. Whoa, dirty diaper. What's going on? That's unconditional love is not just love that is not swayed by reason. It has no relevancy to reason. I don't even want to hear about reason. The same way, I would be offended if somebody would press me for a reason why I love my child. Oh, you don't have any good reasons? Give me some good reasons why I love you. I could give you reasons, but I've got news for you. None of those reasons, even all those reasons collectively, don't add up to my love. My love has nothing to do with their accomplishments, what I'm proud of, nothing to do. Real unconditional love is beyond reason. It is simply because it is. That's what the Alter is saying we have to feel for one another. Not only we need to feel, but it's there. The Alter says you feel that. The same way you know that towards your siblings. There's just a certain love. You know you love your sibling. Why? Could there be anything that could break that love? only something crazy extreme, but even for somebody who hates their sibling, even if two siblings are in a real big fight, I deeply love them at the same time, right? You could hate and love a sibling at the same time. You can't get rid of that love. No matter what, and you could have every single issue with them. You could have every single level of beef with that sibling, but you still love them. The Alter is really going for a radical level of love, and the Alter is saying that's the love that the Torah is talking about. One Jew must love another Jew. It's because you love that Jew, whether you like it or not. And the Torah's mandate is do whatever it takes to get in touch with that love, but it's inside of you. How do you do it? The Alter says uncover your soul. That's the key. Okay. Let's now apply this in practice, because the Alter is really going for, and thank you for before, carte blanche, just across the board. We don't want to hear anything bad. Nothing matters. We love every single Jew no matter what. Okay. The only problem is that this gets a lot of people nervous. Free love, unconditional love. There's nothing no other Jew could do to make us. I can't buy into that. And if you think about it, I think all of us, every single one of us differently, but all of us could sense, like, 1 second, maybe there's actually that type of Jew who's gone too far this way or too far that way and too much of this or too little of that. And all of a sudden, I don't know if I could love that Jew anymore. What could it be? It could, it's interesting. I had somebody reached out to me, an Orthodox Jew reached out to me. This was shortly after October 7th, and that was when the protests on college campuses were really, in their heat. And there was a picture that was going somewhat viral of a Chabad shliach on college campus. I'm forgetting now which college campus. That was putting on tefillin with a Jewish boy, and that Jewish boy was marching with a Palestinian flag. It started going viral because, that's viral material right there. Somebody sent it to me and says, I'm sorry, this is misguided. I'm all in for Chabad outreach and Chabad love. This is going too far. You're taking a Jew here who's marching with our enemies. How could you start showing this Jew love? Now, you could agree or disagree with the perspective of this person. This chapter, what we're going to learn today, I think is going to be a response to that complaint. But I think all of us at some level could say, 1 second, is there, I'm not sure if I could buy into this type of unconditional free love that is just across the board. At what point are we going to say, we got to make an exception over here? We can't show this Jew love. When does that happen? How does that happen? And some of us really maybe want to feel that it should be happening. At what, I don't know if I could buy into this like really extreme, radical version of love that has no stop measures to it. It never stops. Okay. There is a historical context to this. The historical context is that till today, there are many Jews who believe this mitzvah to be applying only to a Jew who is worthy of being called a Jew, which is an observant Jew. Okay? I just want you to remember, there are a lot of people, especially in the Alter Rebbe's times, that they believe, love a fellow Jew. For sure we love all Jews. Jews like you. Which could sound a little bit snobby-ish or could sound a little bit narcissistic, but it was coming from a place of belief that this is what the mitzvah is. If you're not religious, you're not really part of the Jewish people. You became a German, you became French. You're not a Jew because you've kind of defected. So you're not part of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the guy who joins shul and learns Torah with you and eats around your Shabbos dinner. That's the one you'll love, not the Jews who are lost and who made this deliberate choice to leave the fold of tradition. And what the Alter Rebbe is saying is all of a sudden challenging that notion a lot, right? The Alter is saying, no, love every Jew, every Jew. What about the non-religious? Them too. And they're saying, 1 second, where's the Alter Rebbe taking this from? So this bothered a lot of people. We're supposed to love the non-religious Jew, but they're non-religious. They threw away Torah observance and they threw away Torah study, and I'm supposed to now give them free love. And then some people even said, 1 second, giving love seems to be indicating to them that I'm okay with their life decisions, right? You know about that one? I can't show you love because I'm being permissive now of your life choices. I got to be tough with you and I got to show you I gotta play hard to get, and I have to show you that I don't like what you're doing. So, this whole notion of the Alter Rebbe is ruffling a lot of feathers. This is hitting a raw nerve for a lot of people. Different people for different reasons. There are different perspectives over here. Some people just in general have a hard time getting behind this concept of everybody gets love, and there's specifically pushback from within the religious community. I don't know if I could get behind loving the non-religious Jew. And that's what the author is going to be addressing over here. Practically, what and when do we say, in what scenarios would we say this love maybe doesn't apply anymore? When should we maybe even say is it ever appropriate to hate a Jew? Should we ever say this Jew does something so horrible, we hate him, we don't love him anymore, he's done too much damage? Do we say that? At what point do we say that? Is it appropriate to ever say that? So this part 2, which we're going to be doing today, is going to be addressing this type of general issue. Like Joel just asked, this is another interesting question. A Jew who kills another Jew. Is that, do we say that, oh, you lost the love that we could give you? Interesting. Okay, so this is what we got. How are we doing? Any thoughts, any questions before we dive in? What do you say? We're doing okay? Okay. Does everybody kind of get the premise of today's class? The question, is it a good question? Valid question? The Alter Rebbe has a lot of cleanup to do over here, right? The Alter Rebbe dropped the bomb on us, the bomb of radical love towards every other Jew, and now we kind of have to see and test the limitations, or not, of this love. Okay, l'chaim. And if you thought the Alter Rebbe was radical, today you'll really see how radical the Alter Rebbe is. Because the Alter Rebbe doesn't back down. Okay, here we go. Page 243. Part 3 of the chapter, are there any exceptions to the love? That's the question. Okay. The author is going to give us a statement from the Talmud, which, I'll tell you straight out, is a very difficult statement to swallow. And it is the source in Judaism. The author gives us the source where there seems to be clear permit to hate another Jew. And if there's a thing to hate another Jew, then how does that work with this love we're talking about over here? So let's read page 243, part 3. What about the statement in the Talmud that if you see your friend sinning, it is a mitzvah to hate him? Do you hear that? If you see your friend sinning, it is a mitzvah to hate him. And also to tell your teacher so that he should hate him as well. What do we do with this over here? What do we do with this? There's a piece of Talmud. It's in the Talmud. You see your friend sinning, it's a mitzvah to hate him, and then even go to the teacher, it's like that the teacher hates him too. What's going on over here? It's a very difficult piece of Talmud because, first of all, just think about this practically. This is pretty dystopia, no? Can you imagine every single Jew? First of all, I'm saying, who doesn't sin? You see another Jew sinning? Oh, I hate you. And not only hate them, post on Facebook that we should all hate him. I'm saying society can't really function this way, no? Everybody's policing the other person. There's a hate campaign against anybody who you think did something wrong. So we have to understand the piece of Talmud. The piece of Talmud is a little bit troubling, you know? And then, how does this piece of Talmud fit with the biblical command, love your fellow Jews, love yourself? Which one is it? Are we loving all Jews? Or are we just hating on every single Jew the second we see them sinning? So the author is going to tell us, and so this piece of Talmud, people read it, oh, there's a mitzvah to hate. I'm saying this is heavy words, mitzvah to hate. And we have to understand this piece of Talmud. What does that mean? There's a Jewish idea that sometimes it's important to hate somebody? So there's a lot we have to unpack with this piece of Talmud. But a lot of people look at this piece of Talmud and say, there you have it. A Jew who doesn't sin, that's who we love. The Jew who sins, I hate. So this is the Torah source that you'll bring up and tell the Alter Rebbe, I can't get behind what you're talking about love. You're giving me this radical, unconditional love. Guess what? I can't buy in. The Talmud says if I see a Jew sinning, I hate him. So there's a Jew who's not religious, I hate him. There's a Jew who doesn't keep Shabbos, I hate him. This is the argument. What's the Alter going to do with this? So the Alter is going to say like this. Let us start understanding this piece of Talmud. Let's put it into context. Yes. Is there ever a time that Jewish law would tell you there's a mitzvah to hate somebody? Yes. But the question is, what is the criteria? When? What are the check boxes that have to be hit before there's an allowance to hate somebody? So Alter is going to start walking us through the criteria. And as we're going to see, it funnels in. Basically, what the Alter is going to take us to is, there is a very slim, minor space where the Torah would tell you hate a Jew. But it's such an extreme and narrow space. So you read this piece of Talmud and you think that Talmud's telling you hate a Jew. Why? Because he sinned. No. Let's now actually start learning the topic, seeing what are the criteria, what are the pieces that have to be in place in order to get to this place that Talmud would say you should hate the Jew, and then let's see if it applies to who you think it applies. You ready? So Alter says like this. Number one, the Talmud's ruling has a very limited application. Let's put it into context. Let's make sure we're understanding the halachic criteria. It does not apply to every person. Who's it talking about? Let's begin. Number one, it's talking exclusively about someone who is your friend, meaning someone who is your equal in Torah and mitzvah observance. Okay, this is number one. Okay, let's begin here. We're not talking about any Jew. It's not saying you're walking down the street, you see a Jew sinning, and you start hating on him. Number one, Yalta says, is this your friend? It has to be your peer. Number two, it has to be somebody who is your equal, equally as committed and observant when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs. So practically speaking, what this means is, if you are both friends, you're both study partners, and you understand each other, and there's already a lot of trust, and you understand his struggles, and he understands your struggles, you're on the same page. This is number one. Is it your friend? Is it your fellow? Is it your peer? Is it your equal when it comes to Torah and mitzvah? And the person who the Talmud is speaking about is only somebody who is your equal, meaning is fully observant in Torah and mitzvahs. That's number one. So right away, it's like the Guess Who game. You give a clue and you knock down a bunch of pieces, right? You knock down a bunch of faces. So let's start knocking down some people. Number one, this piece of Talmud has nothing to do with strangers. Number two, this piece of Talmud has nothing to do with somebody who is not a deep friend who you understand him, he understands you. Number three, it does not speak about a secular Jew. Only a very observant Jew who knows Torah and does mitzvahs and is fully there. In other words, it has to be somebody who really understands Judaism from within and still sins. Not somebody who sins because of lack of education, ignorance, etc. Okay? So that's number one. It has to be your friend who's your peer, who's your equal in Torah mitzvah observance. Let's continue. There's more conditions here. Next condition. And first, you don't begin by hating him, you see him sinning. And first, you need to properly fulfill the mitzvah, to properly rebuke him for this thing that he is doing wrong. As the Torah instructs you, you shall rebuke your fellow. So you don't begin with hate, you first begin with rebuke. What's rebuke? In the English language, we hear the word rebuke, and what does rebuke mean? English rebuke is a very tough word. That's not what rebuke means in the mitzvah. Chastise. You know what chastise sounds like? Chastise means, it sounds like I write an op-ed slamming you in the Detroit News. Chastise. I'm going to come down hard on you. Or I'm going to, give you a tear down. A dress down. That's not what rebuke means in Jewish law. There's a mitzvah to rebuke your fellow. What does that mean? So, this is what it means. This is not a mitzvah to chastise or embarrass your fellow, but to respectfully attempt to influence him to change his behavior. And this mitzvah, says the Alter Rebbe, applies only toward your fellow. That's what the verse says, your fellow, your friend, meaning someone who is like you in Torah and mitzvah observance. Again, we're getting a lot of more conditions over here. There's a mitzvah to first, you see somebody failing. You have a friend, and he's not sinning because of a lack of awareness, because of ignorance, lack of education, or lack of Torah or religious upbringing. He's very religious. He didn't do this sin yesterday. He's doing it today out of a very deep place of weakness. What do? The Torah tells you right away what to do. Rebuke him. What does rebuke him mean? It doesn't mean find him in the study hall tomorrow and throw a cup of coffee in his face. Right? God forbid. What it means is ask him to meet up for lunch. And tell him with a lot of love and a lot of care. Jewish law says you have to tell him, I care a lot about you. And say, I see that you're failing. I see you're slipping. I want to be there for you. And try to encourage him. Hopefully that'll be enough and hopefully he'll take your hand. Hopefully he'll say, you know what, yeah, I realize I'm slipping. That's what real friends are for. Real friends are there to say, you know what, Levi, I see you're getting a little bit out of line, and I care about you. I know that you don't. I know that this is a moment of weakness. I know that you're going to regret doing this. Can I please help you out? That's a good friend. That's what the Torah is telling you. Do it once. Do it a second time. Do it a third time. Do it repeatedly. Who do you do this to? You don't do this to a stranger. The Torah says clearly it has to be your fellow. In other words, there has to be a lot of trust. I'm not willing to be vulnerable with somebody off the street. If somebody who I don't know says, oh, Rabbi Dubov, can I meet you for lunch? And I meet him for lunch. And he says, oh, Rabbi Dubov, I noticed you starting to do this sin and that sin and this sin and that sin. I want to talk to you a little bit about it. I don't know this guy. I'm not willing to be vulnerable with you. I'm going to resent that you even are mixing into my business. So Torah says clearly, for this to work, it has to be your friend, your fellow. If you have friendship, if there's a lot of trust, and he understands you're coming from a place of care, and he could be vulnerable with you, then we could do this mitzvah. So the Alter Rebbe says, who is the Talmud speaking about? When the Talmud says that there is a certain point down the road that you could start hating. When is that? Number one, is he your friend? Is he fully Torah observant on your same level? Did you first do the mitzvah properly to rebuke him? Which means to positively influence him. And then, is he still continuing down this path of deliberately sinning? Then, let's continue what the Alter Rebbe says, bottom page 243, say here we're talking about when even after all these efforts, this friend of yours still has not repented from his sin. This is how the situation is described in Sefer Haredim. So, the Alter Rebbe doesn't get fully into this whole understanding, why would there be a place for hate? But there is a place for hate, meaning the Torah would say that it is appropriate to hate this other Jew if there's somebody who is fully religious and on your level of Torah study and knows a lot of Torah, and he's your friend, and he starts sinning, and you do properly, you follow what the Torah wants you to try to influence him. And yet, what you are witnessing is a Jew who is going with tremendous deliberance to go and sin. To have a weak moment, everybody has weak moments. But to go on a long streak of sinning deliberately while knowing better than that, then the Talmud says there could be an allowance to hate that Jew. But what the Alter Rebbe is telling us here, let's not allow that very slim, extraordinary case, which probably none of us even really have ever the opportunity to get to confuse us. You know what they say? They say this about American law. Hard cases make bad laws. You ever heard that one before? Hard cases make bad laws, which basically means you can't make laws based on the extreme cases. Because what happens? Most cases you're supposed to treat not as normal cases. So it's like a rule, like when it comes to, judges. I think this is like in the U.S. Legal system. This is a common catchphrase. Hard cases make bad laws. You start making laws built around the exceptions to the rules instead of the rules. See, Alter Rebbe is saying, you read this piece of Talmud, you think the Talmud is telling you you're allowed to hate Jews? That is an exceptional case. Let's not allow the exceptions to confuse us and make bad laws. What is the non-exception? What is the general rule? Page 244. Says the Alter Rebbe, however, if this person is not your peer in Torah observance, and you are not close with him, he's not your friend, and he's not observant, in that case, there's no room for hate at all. And this is when Hillel the elder instructs you to be of the disciples of Aaron, love peace and pursue peace, love all creatures and bring them closer to Torah. Says the Alter Rebbe, if you somehow hit this very unique situation, that the Torah would tell you that there is an appropriate space for hate, okay, we'll deal with that then. But 99% of the time, otherwise, this piece of Talmud has nothing to do with you, especially towards a stranger. So somebody would say, oh, I can't love a non-religious Jew. I was going to say, 1 second. You know him? He's your friend? What are you talking about? This piece of Talmud is not speaking to you. What? So instead, look at a different piece of Talmud. What piece of Talmud should you look at? Look at what Aaron did. Hillel teaches us in the ethics of our fathers, Pirkei Avot. Learn from Aaron. Be of the disciples of Aaron. Love peace. Love all of God's creatures. Bring them closer to Torah. That's the mandate. Love and love only. And the Midrash speaks about how much Aaron went out of his way to show Jews love, especially those Jews that other Jews would look at and say they're not deserving of my love. The Midrash tells us something so special. Aaron would just be so kind to people, and he'd go out of his way to greet people and to strike conversation with people. And the Midrash says that the next time that person wanted to sin, you know what they would say? They'd say, Oy, I can't sin. I'm going to see Aaron tomorrow, and Aaron's going to say hi to me, and I'm going to be too ashamed to look at him in the face if I do this. I'm not going to do it. Which means Aaron's strategy worked. Don't try to change people by being tough with them. Love is keep it to love. That from one Jew to another Jew, that's what we do. Are there extreme cases where the Torah would even tell us, you know what, hate is the appropriate response here? Maybe. But let's not make bad laws because of hard cases. That's an exception, a very minor, very slim exception to the rule. What we have to do is learn from Aaron, love peace. Simply bring love to people, love all creatures, and then bring them closer to Torah. And the Alter is gonna point out to us something so beautiful here. Why does Hillel the elder teach us about Aaron as loving all creatures? That's a weird thing to say, no? Why didn't say love all Jews? What does it mean loving creatures? So the Alter is going to explain. You know why it says loving all creatures? Because Hillel was speaking even of those who are so far from God's Torah and from being observant Jews, which is why he calls them just creatures, having no merit other than the fact that God created them. Imagine a Jew. There's nothing good to say about them. There's no redeeming value about them. You know, there's a joke. You know the joke? There was once a little shtetl, a town. The rule of the town was, the tradition of the town was, we don't bury anybody until a eulogy is said that should say something good about the person. First say something good in the shul in front of the whole community, and then you could bury the person. There's one Jew, and he was such a miserable, horrible person. When he died, the rabbi said somebody has to get up and say something nice about him. Nobody could say anything nice about him. There's nothing good to say about him. And the rabbi said, I'm sorry, our community tradition is we can't bury the guy until we say something good. But we need to bury him. We need somebody to get up and say something good about him. Does nobody have something good to say about him? Did he never do anything good in this community? Finally, one elderly Jew in the back of the shul stands up and says, I'll say something good about him. People think he's bad, but he has a brother who's much, much worse. And the rabbi said, oh, that's okay, that works. Now we could bury him. You know what then happened? Next year, the brother died. Oy vey. This is now the really worst guy. The rabbi said, somebody has to say something good about him, or else we can't bury him. The same old Jew gets up and says, I'll say something good. Because of this man, another Jew was allowed to be buried. Because of him, his brother was able to be buried. Okay, so they buried him too. That's something good to say about him. Hillel gave us a certain precise word over here. Who did Aaron love? Creatures. In other words, there are some people who can look at them and say there's nothing good about them. Maybe we'll even want to claim they're not a Jew. Yeah, I know they're technically a Jew, but they're so far lost and they're not loyal. We don't want to call them a Jew. You can make all these types of arguments. You know what Hillel says? Aaron loved them as creatures. The only thing you could say about them is God made this person. That you can't take away from them. And Aaron loved them for that. That's it. So even those Jews, they're so far from anything. You see no redeeming value in them. They don't do anything good with their life. They do nothing spiritual with their life. And you would maybe say, why should I love them? Says Hillel the elder, love them. Aaron loved such people. He loved the creatures. Not using creatures in a derogatory way. He was saying, even those people, the only good thing to say about them is they're God's creatures. Them he loved. And says the Alter Rebbe, one of the most important lines over here. We really have to take in this paragraph over here. When it comes to such people, when it comes to everybody else, the 99% of fellow Jews who don't fit that very extreme criteria of the Talmud that we just learned about, when it comes to all other people, you must pull them in with thick cords of love. I love the imagery here, no? Thick cords of love. Wrap them up and pull them in with thick cords of love. Make it irresistible. And just perhaps, says the Alter Rebbe, with all this effort, just perhaps, you'll bring them closer to Torah and to the service of God. So you think they're not religious. You think they're not deserving of your love. The Alter Rebbe says, you know what? Aaron tells us, love such people. Love them anyways. Shower them with your love. And you know what? You're worried they're not observant. Maybe this will actually encourage them to maybe want to taste a little bit more of Judaism and to do another mitzvah. But the Alter Rebbe continues, perhaps yes, perhaps not. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't work. But whatever the outcome, you have not lost the reward of the mitzvah to love a fellow Jew. This is such a precious chapter. So this little paragraph here is so precious. We have to unpack it a little bit. First of all, the Alter Rebbe says, stop allowing what this Jew looks like or doesn't look like to determine if you're going to love them or not. This is not what the mitzvah is. And Aaron shows us clearly this is not something, that's not a factor that stops us from loving a fellow Jew. We love Jews, but they're not religious and there's no redeeming value about them and they're not deserving of my love. Doesn't matter. We love them. Love, what type of love? Thick cords of love. Wrap them up with thick cords of love. Don't let them go. Tie them up in your love. And the Alter Rebbe says, you're worried about them, that they're not so, they're not so good. They're anti-Israel, anti-this, anti-religious. You're worried about that? The Alter Rebbe says, you know what? If you love them, maybe that'll actually be the ticket. Maybe that'll actually be the key to their heart. Maybe then you'll actually be able to influence them. But the Alter Rebbe says, but it doesn't even matter. This is not love which we're looking for results. It's not love which is a means to an end. It's love for the sake of love. The good news is love usually works to actually achieve results. And if it doesn't achieve whatever result you're looking for, it doesn't matter. This is key. The Alter says we don't care about results. We love Jews, over, period. Somebody told me something brilliant, that these words of the Alter, these last few words, perhaps yes, perhaps not, but whatever the outcome, you have not lost the reward of the mitzvah to love a fellow Jew. Somebody told me this line costs Chabad millions of dollars a year. What does that mean? Why would this line cost millions of dollars, Chabad millions of dollars a year? There's something so profound happening here in these words of the Alter Rebbe. You know, Chabad was the first, but Chabad today is not the only outreach organization in the Jewish world, right? But there's something very, very unique. There's a certain secret sauce to Chabad, which I think the Alter Rebbe is telling us about right over here. Is Chabad the only Jewish organization that is doing outreach, reaching out to Jews, giving them opportunities, reaching out to them with love? I don't think so. There's a lot of organizations. But every normal organization is going to be looking and going to be making sure that they're getting a good return on investment. Good ROI, right? There's got to be return on investment, which means we're going to open up an organization. We're going to be fundraising money. We're going to be putting on programs. We're going to be, and we have limited resources, right? We always only have limited resources. We want to make sure we're using our resources properly. We want to make sure we're getting results. Are there good results? If there's good results, we keep on doing it. If there's not good results, we stop doing it. It's not worth our investment anymore. Every single Jewish organization that is doing outreach, from Birthright to every single organization, I don't want to start naming organizations, but every organization that's doing good work is looking for results. We're going to shower people with love, but we want something back from that love. We want a commitment. We want to see results. We want to see something that's going to happen from this. So we're trading our love, and we want to get something back from you. And then what happens to organizations is What happens if you see that you're working with people, you're doing certain programming, you're working with a community, you're not getting good results? You got to change tactics. It's not working anymore. We're not getting results. Every single organization under the sun, especially Jewish organizations, is looking for this. The donors want it. This is the MO of the organizations. We need results. We want to see that we are moving the needle. More people are becoming more observant Jews. More people are committing to learn yeshiva. We got to have something happening over here. Chabad, we are crazy. Chabad does not care about return on investment. It really is crazy. It's a very difficult mindset to get into because as humans, we're always looking for the profit margin. We're always looking for good results. And we always want to make good strategic choices. Are we investing our resources in the right place? Or are we just wasting our resources? Says the Alter Rebbe, we don't care about results. There's a mitzvah to love fellow Jews. That's what one Jew does to another Jew. Hopefully it will help inspire them to get closer to Torah and mitzvahs. And if not, who cares? The Rebbe really drilled into the Chabad mindset. Stop looking for results. Anytime a shliach would complain to the Rebbe, we work so hard, we don't see any good results in the community, the Rebbe would always tell them to stop caring about that. Results is God's business. We are here to do our mitzvah. We're loving fellow Jews, and we're doing our part. This is what this guy told me. This line from Tanya cost Chabad millions of dollars. We don't do things strategically. We don't play triage on Jews, right? That's another thing. Other organizations will play triage, which means, are you the type of Jew who is most impressionable? Are you the Jew who's most receptive to what we're offering here? And if you're the Jew who doesn't fit that cut, you're not really going to be the Jew who's going to, bite that bait. We're not going to waste our resources on you. We're not going to waste our love on you because we want results. The Alter is radical in saying we don't care about that. Let us spin our wheels wasting our love. It's the mitzvah of loving a fellow Jew. We don't care. Results, that's God's business. The Alter says the way to deal with another Jew, and the Alter is really educating a generation, especially just giving you a little bit of a historical background. The Tanya is being published at the very end of the 18th century. 1796, the Tanya becomes published. This is the beginning of the era when, within European Jewry, there's that break. Many Jews are becoming non-religious, non-observant. And I think the knee-jerk reaction of the religious community was to say, we're going to start hating upon those Jews. And the Alter was really, in a very visionary way, giving the Jewish world the new way to look at this, saying, no. There's Jews who are, not keeping Torah, Jews who are secular, and you're going to maybe want to have this knee-jerk reaction to say, let's disown them, let's not let them pray in our synagogues, no, that's not the way to do it over here. Love Jews. Hopefully with the love, you'll be able to inspire them, but it doesn't make a difference whether yes or not. That's a very key line over here. Perhaps yes, perhaps not. We don't care. Quite radical, I gotta say. There's a story with the third Chabad Rebbe that there was a chassid from a faraway Hasidic village who visited the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him about a certain individual. In this Hasidic village, which was pretty distant from the Rebbe's hometown, there was a chassid who was fully observant, fully religious, but then one day something happened and he slowly slipped away from religious observance. He slipped away from being an observant Jew. And the community slowly pushed him out. Stopped inviting him to the wedding, stopped inviting him to the Shabbos Kiddush. And they kind of disenfranchised him. We don't want to know you anymore. You left the community, you're done. You left the community, you're not getting any more of our love. That was kind of the attitude. And the Rebbe asked this chassid, how's this individual doing? He's like, how's this individual doing? I haven't spoken to him in years. We're done with him. He left the community. We're angry at him. We don't like him anymore. And the Rebbe was very upset. The Rebbe said, no, that's not the way you do it. God forbid, that's not the way you do things. That's not business here. Invite him back. Make sure he feels comfortable in the shul. Invite him to every single one of your children's simchas. What type of business is this? He's one of us. You're letting him go? Who does that? This was the Alter of his grandson. He was so upset. He says, "This is not the way. Invite him back. Make sure he feels your love." It's just the Alter here is giving us education. How do we look at another Jew? Okay. So to summarize briefly, the Alter is saying, okay, listen. You're going to come to me with a complaint. I'm being too radical. You're going to come pull off the bookshelves and show me that there's places in Judaism where it says, no, don't love Jews. The Alter says, first of all, put that into context. That is a very, very extreme, slim situation. When you have that situation, let's talk. But 99% of the time, that doesn't even apply. So let's not get confused by that exceptional case. We love Jews. That's point number one. Now the Alter goes even further, even more radical. You ready for this? The Alter says, you know what? Let's go back to that piece of Talmud. You're going to say, but there is a Jew that the Torah says you're supposed to hate. The Alter is going to say, okay, granted, there's a mitzvah sometimes, once in a million, I don't know, once in 1,000, once in 100,000, I don't know what the number is. But there's a rare case where maybe there would be a mitzvah to hate somebody. The Alter is going to say something so brilliant. Whoever said that the mitzvah to love ever went away? So the Talmud tells us the mitzvah to hate this person. Okay. So there's mitzvah to hate and to love. Whoever said that the mitzvah to love this Jew is ever canceled? And what the Alter is going to say is, even when there's a rare situation that the Torah would tell you there's a mitzvah to hate somebody, even then the mitzvah to love them still applies. So you're never getting rid of love for a fellow Jew. Sometimes you just have to add on hate as well, which sounds a little bit like a oxymoron. Love the Jew and hate them as well. That's a bit weird. How do you do that? So we'll get to that. But says the Alter Rebbe, middle of page 244, right? Does hate cancel out the love? Says the Alter Rebbe, but it goes even further. Even in the above case, where there is a mitzvah to hate them, who? The ones who are close to you, that you have rebuked, and yet have not repented of their sins. Right? That guy. Says the Alter Rebbe, but the mitzvah to love them applies to them as well. Yes, it is a mitzvah to hate them, but the mitzvah to love them is still in full force. How could they both be true? So the Alter Rebbe says, one second. While seemingly contradictory, but both emotions are genuine. How? This is how it works. Hatred is due to the evil within them. You are witnessing evil. You're witnessing the evil within somebody really rear their ugly head. You're seeing evil take over this person, and that is something to hate. Evil is something to hate. And basically what Talmud is saying, if you come to a point that there's somebody who you're literally seeing the evil within them really dominate them, there's space to hate. That's something to hate. So you hate that. But, says the Alter Rebbe, but there's also love. Love due to that aspect of good that is buried within them. The divine spark within them that vitalizes their divine soul. Page 245, right? You're loving the bad inside of them, and you love the good inside of them. So both are true. Which means the love for the fellow Jew never goes away. We love fellow Jews for their soul. We still love this Jew for their soul. We also hate the evil which is becoming so manifest within them. So there's love and hate. Whenever there's love and hate competing with each other, what makes one win? It's a little bit of a complex emotional situation going on over here. When the emotions are simple, that's good. Here we got a complex emotional situation. Love and hate. What do we do? Let's go back. Have you ever had a sibling, like when you were a kid? You're a little kid, and you have a sibling, and you fight like cats and dogs, right? You ever had your kids fight like cats and dogs? So, maybe I shouldn't be embarrassed to say, but I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. When I was like 9, 10, 11, I fought with my little brother like as if we were the most bitter enemies in the world. Right? We were roommates, but we fought at least once a day. Like, full-on fighting. We would not get along. All right. Don't worry. Today, we love each other to the high heavens. But, okay, so even then, I hated him. I also loved him. It was a complex emotional situation going on over there. What made one win over the other? The Alter Rebbe says there's a third emotion that makes one emotion become more dominant than the other. Let's read what happens over here. So we have hate and there's love. There could be a Jew that there's a mitzvah to love them and there's a mitzvah to hate them at the same time. So what do we do about that then? So the Alter Rebbe says aside from these two emotions, aside from these two emotions, you need to introduce a third emotion. You got to bring in the third emotion as well. What's the third emotion? Inspire your heart to feel compassion for this divine soul. Why? For it is an exile within the evil of the Sitra Achra that is overpowering it in those that do wrong. This person is doing things wrong. The Sitra Achra, the evil of the Sitra Achra and their animal souls overpowering over the divine soul. So you love the divine soul, you hate the evil, and that leads you to third emotion, compassion. You feel bad for that person. You have such pity. Have compassion on the person. You're seeing a struggling human being. Have compassion. And the Alter Rebbe says, you know what happens when you have compassion? Here's the key. The Alter Rebbe says like this. Once you awaken that compassion, it will actually overwhelm the hatred and stir up the love. That's the nature of compassion. When you feel bad for somebody, when the heartstrings of compassion are tugged, the hate is a little bit evaporated and the love comes out. What would happen if I saw my brother, who just that morning, I was kicking him and fighting with him and bullying him. And the night before, I was bullying him and harassing him. But today, there's another kid in school who's beating up my brother. Or my brother fell and broke his leg. What then happens? Am I still his enemy? All of a sudden, I feel bad for him. The love comes out. So the Alter Rebbe says, whenever you got a love-hate situation, get that compassion going. And when there's compassion for another Jew, that goes to the back burner. And the love really is what comes out. The Alter Rebbe is basically saying that even when there's a mitzvah to hate a Jew, that's not the dominant emotion. The dominant emotion, the main way we look at Jews is always going to be with love, even when there's a place for hatred. And the Alter Rebbe concludes this, the meaning of the known interpretation given to the verse, to Jacob who redeemed Abraham. This is what the verse says, Jacob who redeemed Abraham. What does it mean Jacob is redeeming Abraham? This is a Kabbalistic idea. Jacob is the quality of compassion, and Abraham is the quality of love. And compassion redeems love from within the hatred. Sometimes this is what works. If love is ever there, but it's a little bit buried, compassion will really help bring out that love. Compassion redeems the love. Jacob redeems Abraham. So the Alter says, even when there's a place to hate a Jew, the love will always be the dominant emotion. Why? Because the compassion really helps that love come out. And with this, the Alter really concludes his exploration of what are the limitations to the love of a fellow Jew. And what the Alter really leaves with is, there's no limitations to the love of a fellow Jew. First of all, you're going to tell me there's a time that Talmud tells you to hate. Alter says, come on, let's be real. That's a tiny percentage of a situation. That never comes up. That's an exceptional case. And even then, says the Alter Rebbe, the radical love is still there. We're always loving a Jew, even when there's a slim situation where it's appropriate to hate. And even then, the hate is not the dominant emotional, meaning the main posture from me to that person is not hate. The main posture is love. This is what the Alter Rebbe says. And in a certain way, by bringing this idea from theory into practice, the Alter makes this idea so much more real and so much more radical. Because it's not just a deep idea, but it's the Alter is showing you that when the rubber hits the road, it's real. This is how it works. Don't tell me we love Jews in theory, but practically that Jew I don't love. It's not the way it works. Okay. There's one little final section to the chapter. We have 4 minutes left. And the Alter puts it in parentheses because we're kind of really done the chapter, but it has to be mentioned because we're already touching upon the subject. The Alter is going to say there is a very, very severe extreme case where even love towards that Jew is inappropriate, but it's a very rare case. What's that case? Let's read it. There is a case when love is totally inappropriate, and it comes from a verse in Psalms from King David. Let's read this, bottom of page 245. When love is inappropriate, says the Alter Rebbe, when King David of blessed memory said, I hate them with an ultimate hatred. Okay, let's stop there 1 second. There's a verse in Psalms chapter 139, verse 22, where King David says about other Jews, I hate them with the ultimate hatred. What does that mean? I thought we're all about love. Why is King David hating on people with the ultimate hatred? That's pretty rough. And by the way, King David, if you read Psalms, you'll see King David is an unbelievably emotional guy. You know, he really understood emotional depth. If King David says, I have ultimate hatred, what does ultimate hatred means? I can't hate them anymore. This is pedal to the metal hatred. You know, I'm hating them as much as I can. King David understood this is real massive hatred. How does this fit? King David has maximum hatred towards fellow Jews. How does that fit with what we've been talking about over here? So the Alter Rebbe says no. He did not intend these words towards anybody, but he only meant a very specific type of Jew. Who? Those cultists and heretics, which are highly educated Jews who deliberately seek to harm the Jewish people. Them, King David says, I hate them fully. Now, we're going to have to unpack this, but let's keep on reading a little bit more. They have forfeited their manifest connection to Judaism and to the Jewish people, and have no share in the God of Israel, as stated in Talmud Shabbat, beginning of chapter 16. So now, dear friends, there's something called a cultist and heretic. Now, we use the word heretic in English a little bit too loosely. What does heretic mean? Oh, you don't believe in God. No. Heretic that we are describing over here means somebody who, number one, knows a lot of Torah, and they are going anti-God on an agenda, on an anti-God agenda, which means like this. A regular sinner is not a heretic. They're a regular human being who either due to a lack of education or simply due to emotional weakness is sinning. That's human. We still love that Jew. Then there could be a Jew who says, I'm a heretic, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God. They're not a real atheist. You think it's easy to be an atheist? It's very difficult to be an atheist. It's like me saying, I don't believe in gravity. Oh, you don't believe in gravity? You ever learned about gravity? Imagine if I would tell you, I don't believe in the theory of relativity. Oh, really? You don't believe in it? Let's discuss it. Did you ever read any books about it? No, I never read anything about it. You ever went to a college course about this? No. So what do you mean you don't believe in it? I don't believe in it. You don't even know what you don't believe in. What does that mean you have an opinion if you don't even know the subject matter? So when somebody says, I don't believe in God, that's not called a heretic. They've really studied all the Jewish books that describe what belief in God is and the proofs and the art. What are you talking about? You know the whole Talmud to be able to say, I studied it and I don't agree with it. What does that even mean? So most people are not atheists. They're ignoramuses. They just don't know better. That's okay. An atheist is somebody who knows everything. He knows everything and he's still an atheist. And he's not an atheist due to emotional weakness, due to just simply he wants to sin. That's excusable. Okay, we could work with that. This is somebody who has a vengeful, anti-God agenda and he's looking to hurt God. He's looking to hurt the Jewish people. Were there such people throughout history? Yes. Very few people like this, by the way. This is weird. You got to have like a little bit of like a mental disorder to become like, to have like an agenda to be anti-God. You can't sleep at night. You want to destroy the Jewish people. There have been people. The example of this are the early Jews who were, some of them were even rabbis, who we don't understand what prompted them to do this, who began the early version of Christianity. And they lured Jews to become idolatrous and to leave Judaism. These are people who knew better. And they were looking to destroy the fabric of the Jewish people for no other reason but in spite of God. That's bad stuff. That's bad stuff. They're looking to place a wedge between God and the Jewish people. They're looking to tear Jewish people away from their Torah and mitzvahs. That unique case, King David says, you know what? That's too far for me. That's my red line. I hate them and I couldn't hate them more. I have no lost love for them. We are done. Only that type of case. So the author says, yes, there's a very extreme case. We have a Jew who's destroying the Jewish people. He's not destroying the Jewish people out of a lack of education or of a lack of awareness or he's doing it. He's fully knowledgeable. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing it simply to hurt God, hurt the Jewish people with a very vicious attitude. That is somebody who has made a deliberate choice, a conscious choice, to remove themselves from the Jewish people. Ultimately, nobody could really fully remove themselves from the Jewish people, but at least on a manifest level, they have lost that manifest connection to the Jewish people, and therefore the love is over. That unique case, by the way, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said, and many rabbis of that era agreed with him, that today a Jew who fits this criteria doesn't exist anymore. It's very difficult to find somebody who fits this criteria. A Jew who knows a lot of Torah, and yet, in spite of what he knows and in spite of his awareness of God, this is a very rare situation. So the Alter has in parentheses, yes, there's another very rare situation where maybe we would say total hate. But again, this is a very extreme situation. And don't think that your neighbor who's not religious is who we're talking about over here. God forbid about that. It goes back to what we said. The Alter says, those Jews who you think are not deserving of your love, no, learn from Aaron. That is the good rule. That is the general going case, the way we see Jews. Wrap them up with cords of love. And dear friends, that is chapter 32 of Tanya. And what's the message? The Alter Rebbe is telling us we gotta love Jews radically. Radical love. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory coined a beautiful phrase. He said, what was the Rebbe trying to do? He says the Rebbe was trying to chase after every single Jew with love, just as they were once chased down in hatred. Not too long ago, we had our enemies, and they were literally chasing us out of hatred for the Jewish people. And the Rebbe said, let's make a campaign to chase after Jews with love. It's an interesting idea from Rabbi Sachs. But that's what the Alter was telling us in chapter 32. We got to chase after Jews with love. Love, love, love. It's real, it's deep, it's within you. Expose it, and don't be self-conscious about it. Don't say, I don't know, maybe this Jew shouldn't be getting my love. No, every Jew gets your love. That's the mitzvah. And dear friends, that is what we got for you tonight. L'chaim, l'chaim. May we all merit to feel the love towards each other, towards all fellow Jews a little bit more. L'chaim, l'chaim.
So, Rabbi, I could see that if someone one Jew kills another Jew and I didn't know the Jew, I might find it within my heart to understand and have some compassion for the killer. Maybe he was raised wrong, maybe he had a mental illness, okay. But if, God forbid, another Jew kills someone that's close to me, I would find it almost impossible to find any compassion for someone like that.
Again, we're not saying over here that you have to excuse that Jew. Doesn't mean you have to find justification for the Jew do. Again, the Alter was saying, we're not saying I agree with your policies. I'm not saying I agree with your decisions. I'm not saying the opposite. I totally disagree with what you did over here. I condemn what you did over here. But as a fellow Jew, I love you. It's an interesting It's an interesting dynamic. Some people think that if I love you, that means I agree with what you did. No, that's not what we're saying over here. There was once a very, very anti-religious.
That's a very difficult thing when it becomes personal. Even that's the worst. God forbid.
Yeah. In the book called Rebbe, Rabbi Joseph Talishkin wrote a very important work on the Rebbe's life called Rebbe, about Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. I'm gonna be doing another class in a few minutes. Okay, so we got to wrap up over here. But he has a whole chapter about this whole idea of how the Rebbe was able to disagree with people without being disagreeable, which was an amazing thing. The Rebbe was able to have people who he really deeply disagreed with, and yet they would meet up, and they would keep on coming back to the Rebbe to have meetings with him. And they would say, "Well, this guy disagrees with you. Why would you go back to him?" And say, "No, but there's no judgment by him. I enjoy speaking with him. He still respects me as a person." It's very, very interesting. The Rebbe was able to really disagree with people on policy. I'm saying, speaking especially about some Israeli politicians. Some Israeli politicians, the Rebbe was very, very against their political stance when it comes to the security and protection of the Jewish people in the Holy Land. And the Rebbe was even maybe vocally against them and their policies. And yet they would come. There's many such cases. It was... But so you could read it up over there. Very interesting chapter. He gives a few stories and examples of how the Rebbe was able to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think it's kind of what's going on over here. The author was saying we got to love Jews. I'm not saying you agree with them, but just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean that now there's animosity. Now there's bad blood between us. Not that.
Is this idea something that rubbed groups of Jews the wrong way? Because
say it again. Does it what?
So this idea to love each Jew, to find, deep inside that love for the Jew, does this go against some of the different sects, Judaism? Because recently somebody made a very, disparaging comment about Chabad, and I didn't understand why. Why do some people have like a bad attitude about Chabad?
Well, it depends what that comment was. And there could be a bunch of sociological reasons why people would want to speak badly about Chabad. We could go into them if you would like.
I didn't understand it. I've been affiliated with Chabad for a number of years, and so when somebody says something negative, it's just like, why did you say that? I feel defensive.
Yeah. There can be all types of reasons. I don't think today there's anybody which would say that this is out of the pale of what they believe is in Judaism is right. One of the things that the Alter Rebbe does, and we're not going to do this over here, is the Alter Rebbe very critically grounds all of this whole chapter in the traditional sources in a way which makes his argument. One of the things you have to realize about this chapter is that there's a halachic argument here. The Alter is laying down a halachic criteria, which is actually very well sourced, to the point that you can't even with scholarship, you can't claim that the Alter Rebbe is not correct. Now, we didn't get into that, but if you look up all the sources that the Alter was putting together over here, which in the English translation we kind of really gloss over, it's actually a brilliant argument. It's a brilliant formation of multiple sources to lead you to this is the criteria, the halachic criteria of how to love and when to love and what are the limitations of the love. So I don't think there's anybody who says that they don't agree with this. And the opposite. This is something which is continuing to inspire the Jewish world more and more. There are a lot of reasons why Chabad, throughout the past 250 years, got people nervous from across the spectrum. And I think that's because Chabad is very different in the sense that it is always pushing the boundaries. It is always coming with a very fresh and new message. And fresh and new messages are sometimes refreshing, and sometimes they're also difficult to stomach when there's when you're used to kind of things being a certain way. There's no question that all the Chabad rabbis were tremendous revolutionists and radicals. They were each in their own way tremendously revolutionary, and they were really radical in their thinking. And they came to the Jewish world not saying, let's just keep on doing more of the same good old stuff, but let's, within traditional Judaism, let's begin the new chapter. Every single one of the Chabad rabbis were doing that. We're beginning a new chapter in a way which, there's very few people who could look at that and say, Maimonides began a new chapter in Judaism. Maimonides made a lot of people upset. Nobody today would say Maimonides was, he was one guy, minority voice. No, today Maimonides, what he means, one of the pillars of Judaism. Same thing goes with everybody, The Alter was one of those people. He began a new chapter. The Rebbe began a new chapter. The Rebbe got everybody nervous, from the very religious to the most secular. The reform movement brought Chabad up to the Supreme Court over the public menorahs. Up until a few years ago, I saw an article in the Jewish News. Chabad fought in the Supreme Court in the 1980s to allow public menorahs on federal and state grounds, on government property. And they were fighting it not unconstitutional. The Constitution was the cloak, was the veil. They really were just uncomfortable. No, it's going to stoke too much anti-Semitism. They were all anti-Chabad for being too, I'm talking about the federations. The federations used to be extremely anti-Chabad up until a few years ago. A lot has changed. And then you also have the religious community. They were very upset. Why is Chabad doing outreach with non-religious Jews? It's cheapening Judaism. It's not the right thing. So the Rebbe was really radical. And one of the things of the Rebbe was that the Rebbe didn't care what anybody said. If he felt something was truth, he did it, and he really couldn't care less. He was not looking for public opinion. He wasn't looking for consensus. The Rebbe it's very special. You really see how the Rebbe kind of dealt with criticism.
Rabbi Dubov, people fear the unknown.
People fear the unknown. And that was definitely charting people into the unknown. There's no question. The Rebbe was saying, what the Rebbe was saying is, we are not going to continue doing pre-Holocaust shtetl just now in Brooklyn. We are coming to the American 20th, 21st century taking the bull by the horns, and we're going to answer the new need of what Judaism has to bring to the Jewish community in the second half of the 20th century, going to the 21st century. Today, everybody knows that the Rebbe hit it on the button. The Rebbe knew exactly what he needed to do, and the Rebbe prepared the Jewish world for the next generation, for the next frontier. But as you say, it got a lot of people nervous. Until today, there's still a lot of that tension that you still see simmering here and there.
That was fabulous. Thank you, Rabbi Dubov. That was really
Wonderful.
something.
All right. Have a wonderful evening, dear friends. We'll see you all very soon.
Thank you.
God bless you all. Zagazon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.